Welcome to part two of postseason, preseason, I guess, Prem and Proper. Jon here, Nyle there. We've gone through the top 10 teams and what we think that they need coming into the 22-23 season. Now it's time to catch up with everybody from 11 on down. So 11 through 17, the survivors, and then the three new folks that are coming in, Fulham, Bournemouth, and Nottingham Forest. And we'll catch up with them as well. Nyle, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Try to look the part and try to figure out what we're doing. So let's start with number 11, and we'll go in that order. We'll go 11 through 17 and finish with the three new guys. 11, Newcastle. Eddie Howe took over. They were next to last. They run up the table. They finish in 11th place at 49 points, winning their last three of their last five, 13, 10, and 15. Newcastle. What do you think about this? They're not going to be spending a lot. I've heard about £100 million to bring in folks, but what do you think for Newcastle here?
No, but if they want to be more ambitious this season, they're going to have to bring in some reinforcements. And they've been linked with quite a few players. The name that I keep hearing come up is Hugo Ekitike, I think.
Yep.
And according to Fabrizio Romano, the deal, though, to sign him could be further delayed because he suffered an injury during France's match against Croatia on Monday in the Nations League. And his agent was actually expected in Newcastle after the agreement was reached with Reims, but it has been delayed, and Newcastle now will consider other options. So
you look at Hugo Ekitike as a part of the discussion, and I know that Sven Botman, for the moment, is not a part of the discussion. It might end up being something of a running gag with us here as to where in the world is Sven Botman, and we'll see where he ends up as well. But no, it looks like you're probably going to need some reinforcements up front to help out with the scoring that you had last season. Last season, when you look at Newcastle, they only scored 44 goals in 38 matches, so that's about 1.2, and you gave up 62. So you're probably looking at the front and the back for Newcastle. Crystal Palace, 11, 15, and 12 last year, 48 points. They were shockingly in their last three. They hit each of the columns. They were 1-1 and 1 in their last three. They did win three of their last five. And I know that a lot of folks looked at Crystal Palace last year and went, ooh, Conor Gallagher, we like him. We got to keep Conor Gallagher, because he was a force for Crystal Palace and helped them get to where they were. What about Palace for you and Patrick Vieira? What do you think that they need to be hunting for here?
Well, I think they need to be looking at, a right back. They need to be looking at a replacement for Gallagher, especially if they're not going to bring him back on loan, and bring him back permanently.
Makes you wonder how much they're willing to spend to keep Conor Gallagher there at Selhurst Park.
Yeah, and speaking of which, there's already been a name that's caught up as for a potential replacement. According to The Athletic, there's been interest in Rangers' Joe Aribo, as he would fit well into Vieira's system as a replacement for Gallagher and is very versatile, so one to keep an eye on. And then also Sam Johnstone is another one. He is expected to be the club's first signing of the transfer window after his departure from West Brom, as he is now a free agent. A couple more interesting ones. Wan-Bissaka is one I've heard been tossed around a bit. They're eyeing a situation at United, and they'll see what happens there with the hopes of him potentially making a return to his former club. Interesting name also, Chris Richards, the US MNT defender. According to Telegraph, he was monitored by Crystal Palace. So that's something that I find interesting, as as a US player, there's definitely more of them being linked to all these new Premier League teams. So
definitely one to keep an eye on, especially when you mention USMNT, folks. That to me always is going to get the spidey senses going. Brentford, 13th. Fantastic season for Thomas Frank and the Bees, finishing at 13, 7, and 18. Great start with the win at home against Arsenal out of the blocks. And then you go from there, and they had some, it was kind of shaky there for a minute, and you kind of knew that was going to happen with Brentford. But then you bring in Christian Eriksen. Fortunes change. You got that fulcrum from Christian Eriksen. And let me guess, the number one thing that you think Brentford needs to do in the offseason, much like Crystal Palace and Conor Gallagher, is keep Christian Eriksen. That's got to be your number one, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when he joined Brentford, he completely changed the game for them. He's a vital piece to this team. His leadership, his quality. He's still very much a top player, and he's a guy that will really help Brentford kind of maybe separate from the rest of the other teams that may potentially be battling relegation and so forth. So I think it's a very good um, opportunity for them to sign him, and so they could potentially make more waves in the Premier League this coming season, as I think they have the talent under Thomas Frank. Especially, it'll be interesting to see what they can do.
No doubt about it. And fantastic season for Thomas Frank and Brentford. What did you do in the midfield? I think also, in addition to Christian Eriksen, to help out the scoring up top, because you did get some combinations with Ivan Toney and Mbumo doing really well. How do you help those numbers up top? But Christian Eriksen for me should be priority 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 for Brentford coming into the offseason. Villa at 45 points, 13, 6, and 19, goal difference of -2, scored 52 and gave up 54. They kind of stumbled at the end, only getting 2 points in their last 4 matches. What do you think about Stevie G and Aston Villa there, sir?
Yeah, I think that, under Stevie G, they were very impressive last season at times. I think you're right. Towards the end of the season, they kind of dropped in consistency a bit. They've already made some work done in the transfer window. They signed Kamara from, I think it was Olympique Marseille, I think. And then they're also, I think there's still work to be done for them. The latest player they've been linked with is Sonny Perkins. According to Fabrizio, Aston Villa and Leeds have open talks to sign the West Ham forward. He's only made 3 appearances for West Ham, and both clubs want to sign him. He's a young player. Also, I think one of their biggest priorities should possibly be someone as a forward. I know Luis Suarez has had his name tossed around there, which is kind of interesting. There's been reports saying that, Villa's exploring the possibility of signing him. I know that he was also been linked to a move to River Plate, I think, as well. So, I mean, that's something to definitely keep an eye on. I think also midfield should be something they also need to improve. 2 names I've heard come up have been Calvin Phillips and Biswilma. Phillips has been a long-term target, but is unlikely that,
Phillips has been a target for everybody. Let's be honest.
Yeah, he's been a target for everybody. But it's unlikely he is signed this summer, especially if another team comes and gets him, like a City or what so forth. And then Biswilma, he was already targeted by Villa, but he may be again after a bid for him was rejected in January. Except Villa will not overpay for him, though, especially because Gerrard's comfortable having Kamara play in that holding midfield role. So,
Southampton. Now, Ralph Hasenhüttl, it seems at times, does a lot with a little.
Yeah.
And then he'll do a little with a lot. And you look at Southampton, and it almost seems like Southampton, when they get to 40 points, it's like there's a ceiling or a brick wall or something. And it's just like, okay, we made it to 40. We can breathe. And then the rest of the season is just like, and this past year, I mean, you look at how things ended for Southampton.
Yeah.
Southampton loses their last 4, 4-1 to Leicester, 2-1 to Liverpool, 3-0 to Brentford, 2-1 to Palace. And you go back and you look at their form. Southampton had the worst form coming in their last 5. They only won 1 of their last 10. They were 1, 2, and 7 in their last 10. So Southampton, you sit there and you're like, okay, you'll come up and you'll bite somebody, but then everything just kind of just does this slow fade. And it's like, yeah, they're up. What do you do for a team that might surprise some folks, give up 9 in one match, which always is going to happen, and then fades the way they do? What do you do if you're Southampton?
Well, I think they need to improve on all fronts in order to, if they want to be more consistent, because like you said, they seem to be, once they hit 40 points, they kind of just seem to drop off their level a bit and just kind of not be as productive. But the latest two players I've seen them been linked with, one of them is Harry Winks. According to Team Talk, Southampton has him on their radar. And according to the Daily Mail, Tottenham put a price tag of £25 million on him. Winks is thought to fit Southampton's style of play well, and it's seen as a good foil for Prowse. And then also Galvin Bazzuno, who's a goalkeeper, according to The Athletic, he's close to signing for Southampton from Manchester City, and what will be a £10 million move. But I don't think this is the end in terms of like transfer rumors for Southampton. They definitely need to be signing more players. I think defense is something that they really should need to improve on, especially with the goals they've conceded, and also maybe somebody in the forward line as well. So
you look at you mentioned their goals against. They only scored 43, and I know that a lot of folks look at Che Adams and Broha as part and parcel of that. So 5 over 38, trying to do my fractions quickly. It's about 1.2, like 1.2 ish. You give up 67 goals. That's like 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. You've got to stop that hemorrhaging defensively. So that does make a lot of sense. Same for Everton at 16th. And then you want to talk about one of the saves of the century with with Frank Lampard and what they had to do to stay away from relegation, finishing 11 wins, 6 draws, 21 losses in 38 matches for Everton. They finish with 43 scored, 66 allowed, even with Jordan Pickford in net, 66 allowed for Everton. And it was crazy for Everton to survive. Farhad Mashiri has given an apology for what has transpired with the club. And I know that everyone has been embracing what's been going on with Frank Lampard and the save of the century, and they kept him afloat and all these kinds of things. But there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes at Everton right now.
yeah, they still, I mean, it's good that obviously they escaped relegation, but clearly this shows that they have plenty of work to do if they want to be where they should be, which is a middle table team. Um, and I think defensively, they, like Brentford, they have to improve tremendously. And this goes into a player that they've been linked with, which is Burnley's Tarkowski. And according to Fabrizio Romano, Everton is set to sign him on a free transfer. The verbal agreement on personal terms has been reached, but the paperwork is the only thing left to complete. And then also Everton also have been linked with Harry Winks, as they are looking for
everybody's linked to Harry Winks at this point, Nile.
Lampard's rebuild at Everton. So yeah, I think also the attack is something that I think they should also look to provide more depth with. I mean, I get it, you have Richarlison, you have Calvert-Lewin, but I think that front line needs to be bolstered. And maybe also potentially midfield as well. I think just generally in all fronts, if Everton want to be more of a competitive team in this coming season, then they really need to do a lot of work in this transfer window, and they don't really have that much time to do it.
And so the question about the amount of resources that they have as well, considering Alisher Usmanov, and having his assets frozen, as you know, he was part and parcel to the discussions apparently in the room when it came to being a part of the transfers coming in the January window. Finances might be a bit of an issue for Everton as well. Getting Tarkowski on a free from Burnley. Yeah. And we talked about the Burnley story. Now that they're going to be in the championship, you need to get money for your players, and not getting any money for one of your better assets in James Tarkowski adds to the issues, I think, for Burnley, especially in the championship, when you're not getting any kind of a return for the talent that you had when you were in the Premier League. That's a great get if Everton can do it. And another question for Burnley as they start in the championship next season. Leeds, 17th. They survive, 4 points in their last 2 matches. Good for Jesse Marsch, finishing with a record of 9, 11, and 18. They gave up 79 goals, so that's a little more than 2 per match. And you had the feeling that Meslier was less than happy in having to defend a lot of those. And then with Leeds only scoring 42 and 38, obviously the absence of Patrick Bamford meant a lot to not getting the offense on track like it had been in 2 seasons ago. Let me guess, defense and signing Calvin Phillips and keeping him there, keeping Rafinha, keeping all of the weapons that you have if you're Jesse Marsch. Am I close?
Yes, you are close. because if you are Leeds, that's those are your key players. Those are the ones that have brought success to you in the past. For example, like Calvin Phillips, he is a key part of this team. Rafinha as well, and I know he's been linked with the move to Barcelona. And as I've said before, you're not really going to stay at Leeds over Barca, but they definitely need to keep as many players as they can, because if they don't, then that just makes even more of a challenge for Jesse Marsch heading into his second season with Leeds, in which there's going to be more pressure on them to sort of be a better team this season with what they have done in terms of escaping relegation. So it'll be very interesting to see. I have been linked to a few players as well. Most recent one is Mark Roca. According to The Athletic, Leeds have turned their attention to signing him, and they want him as a solution to strengthening their midfield. And this would increase the competition and also provide depth, with Calvin Phillips possibly out for a bit, as he did suffer an injury during England's 1-1 draw against Germany. I mean, the guy just can't catch a break.
Oh,
I mean, the 25-year-old is just 2 years into his 5-year contract with Bayern, but he is set to be available for a fee in the region of £10 million. So, I mean, this is 100% a get, if, in my opinion, if you're Leeds, for a guy this cheap, but a guy that, could contribute to the team, then, I mean, that's definitely a bargain signing, and I think Leeds should go for it. So,
last three on the board, we'll kind of take them as a group because you got three teams going down in Burnley, Watford, and Norwich. Norwich, by the way, and I didn't realize this, gave up 84 goals last season. And we were focused on Leeds and the margins that Leeds were having with their matches, giving up 79. Watford gave up 77. Norwich gave up 84 goals last year. Norwich City gave up 84 goals. So Burnley, Watford, Norwich go down. Coming up, Fulham. Coming up, again, Bournemouth, two of the yo-yo guys. And Nottingham Forest survives the playoff, and they're the third team in there. For Fulham, we kind of know that the Khan family, with what they did, there's a great article in The Athletic that kind of analyzes the season that Fulham had in the championship, and having Alexander Mitrovic scoring like 7,000 goals obviously helps as your talisman up top, and I know that you're going to need reinforcements for that. Fulham will be, an interesting case. Bournemouth coming back up, with Scotty Tuhati as your coach. They're one of those yo-yo guys. Nottingham Forest for me is the interesting one of the three because, obviously will be gravitated toward Ethan Horvath, but they may need another keeper if Bryce Samba wants to leave. What do you think about the three guys coming up?
Yeah, I think Nottingham will definitely be the most interesting out of those three. I mean, they're back in the Premier League after I don't know how many years, but I mean, a long
quarter century, yeah.
Yeah, a long time. And it'll be very interesting to see what they do, and if they could possibly stay up or not. But I think the goalkeeper situation there is very interesting. Bomb, of course, he does want to leave. I think it'll be very, very interesting to see if Nottingham is satisfied with having a Horvath as a starting goalkeeper and then maybe potentially signing a backup, or the other way around, where a goalkeeper is signed to start and then Horvath is on the bench as the second keeper. And then just in terms of Nottingham as a whole, I think in terms of needing to improve their quality, just on all aspects of the team, if they just want to try to survive, which I think, if they were to survive in the Premier League, that would be a huge achievement for them. So it'll be very interesting to see what they do. Fulham also, I think, they've been also, as you said, they've been a huge yo-yo club. They just can't seem to consistently be able to stay in the Premier League. But I think, it'll be very interesting to see what they do with Scott Parker and Fulham, in terms of the talent they have. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting, battle with these three teams as they try to escape relegation. It'll be interesting to see who impressed the most and maybe who's the most disappointing. So.
And a reminder that the Premier League is going to be looking at Nottingham Forest owner Evangelos Marinakos. He was passed fit to own a club by the EFL before completing his £50 million purchase of Nottingham Forest 5 years ago, despite being the subject of multiple investigations into alleged match fixing and drug trafficking. But the Premier League are making their test more stringent as they seek to head off the threat of an independent regulator. So we'll keep an eye on that. Charged with several serious offenses in Greece before being cleared. So Nottingham Forest will be interesting here as well. 2019, the Olympiacos owner charged with match fixing and involvement in criminal gangs before being acquitted by the Court of Appeal 2 years later. Last year, a Greek judge ruled there was no evidence after he was accused of heroin smuggling. UEFA also launched an investigation into the match fixing claims, but unlike Greek authorities, brought no charges. So it's going to be an interesting offseason in Nottingham Forest. One more question before we go. With the three that are going up, who stays? This is the too early to predict Nile's prediction for who stays up and who goes down after next season. What do you think?
Wow. I think this is a good question. I think Fulham maybe stay up.
Okay.
I think Nottingham goes down.
Okay.
And I think Bournemouth also goes down as well.
All right. So then that's two. You've got two going down. And so you've got those two going down. And who's the third one that goes down? Because if you say Fulham stays up, that means that, unless the Premier League expands to 21, you got 21 teams and 20 spots. Who's your third?
Oh, wait, no, I was going to say Fulham gets promoted, and I think maybe Bournemouth does as well. I think.
All right. So then you got to come up with two now. You got to come up with two that go. So who's joining Nottingham Forest back in the championship?
Back in the championship.
Who's back in the championship?
Oh, wow. I think Nottingham is back in the championship.
Okay, that's one. All right. So give me two more.
And then I also think I do think that potentially maybe Crystal Palace as well.
Is it Brentford? Is it Southampton? Is it Everton? Does Leeds stay up? What do you think? So
I think Leeds stays down as well.
So Leeds drops. So you got one more.
And then also I think Everton also might go down.
Oh,
if they don't get their act together, I think they might go down.
Okay. And then we talked about the financing, so that I completely understand that. So I know where you're coming from. Tell you what, when the summer transfer window is open and closed, we'll do another one, and we can reanalyze what we analyzed with these two versions of Prem and Proper here, parts 1 and parts 2, looking at 1 through 10 and 11 through 20 coming up for the 22-23 season. Now, this has been fun to catch up and analyze what we think they need. Let's see if they listen to us and actually follow through with what we need to have these clubs have coming up to the 22-23 season. Thanks again, as always, for hanging out for Prem and Proper. It's fun to catch up with you, my friend. We'll see you soon.
All right. See you soon. Thank you.